Okay, round 1 is over. Round 2. So, verse 16. Now we're going to take a different direction. Moreover, the Lord says, because the daughters of Zion are haughty. See, there's that word again, haughty. It means arrogant, okay? Like snobby, that kind of thing. Oh my goodness. Okay, I could tell stories. And walk with outstretched necks and wanton eyes, walking and mincing as they go, making a jingle with their feet. Therefore, the Lord will strike. Okay, and then it just goes on, all the kind of judgments here. He's going to take away all these little scarves and ankle bracelets and nose rings. And anyway, it just goes on that way. It's just kind of funny. But yeah. But this is what I see so much of, when it comes to the ladies department. I see these looks, and I see it, I see the little attitudes and the little gossipy things going on, and the contention and backbiting. I mean, I see it in these churches. I see what's happening, and they're so cliquish. Oh my goodness. Yeah, like anywhere I can stop and take a side trail and a rabbit trail and just go on for quite a while about any one of these things. I don't want to spend a lot of time doing that, but just take my word for it. I've seen it all. And anyway, it turns out he doesn't like it too well either. This kind of, their noses in the air and they're just wagging around as they walk and swinging everything. Oh no. Okay. Anyway, it was just a funny visual though. I had to go over that. Okay, now chapter 4. Okay, and in that day seven women shall take hold of one man, saying, we will eat our own food and wear our own apparel. Only let us be called by your name to take away our reproach. Okay, so this was like a time of a shortage of men. And, okay, this is just still coming from here. Because of judgment, there'll be a shortage of men. And so that's what that's about. Yeah. So, and they would take more than one wife at times, and it was sort of like a shame for a woman not to be married. So that's why they said this. Okay, that was just the end of the other things. So now it really starts here. In that day, the branch of the Lord shall be beautiful and glorious. And of course, that's another messianic title here. And the fruit of the earth shall be excellent and appealing for those of Israel who have escaped. So that's interesting. Okay. And it shall come to pass that he who is left in Zion and remains in Jerusalem will be called holy, everyone who is recorded among the living in Jerusalem, when the Lord has washed away the filth of the daughters of Zion and purged the blood of Jerusalem from her midst by the spirit of judgment and by the spirit of burning. Then the Lord will create above every dwelling place of Mount Zion and above her assemblies a cloud and smoke by day and the shining of a flaming fire by night. For over all the glory there will be a covering, and there will be a tabernacle for shade in the daytime from the heat, for a place of refuge, and for a shelter from storm and rain. This is definitely millennial, but this is also like this remnant thing, people who survive and counted among the living. I mean, that all that wording is very interesting here. So this is the end time and like the group that survives. Okay. All right. And then it runs into the millennium with this kind of thing. And this sounds very familiar. They had this when they were going through the wilderness, this cloud and all that, all this description. So that's interesting. And the tabernacle thing coming up again, like tabernacles. So anyway, it's definitely millennial. It just was interesting, so I thought I'd go over that. Okay, and now chapter 5 is interesting in a different way. Okay, so this is the vineyard. Just think of the parable of the vineyard, the vine dressers and the there was like a replacement there of the people who were caring for the vineyard, tending the vineyard. Keep that in mind because this ties right into it. Okay, now let me sing to my well-beloved a song of my beloved regarding his vineyard. So who's talking to who? First of all, that's interesting, right? Okay, my well-beloved has a vineyard on a very fruitful hill. He dug it up and cleared out its stones and planted it with the choicest vine. He built a tower in its midst and also made a winepress in it. So he expected it to bring forth good grapes, but it brought forth wild grapes. And now, O inhabitants of Jerusalem and men of Judah, judge, please, between me and my vineyard. What more could have been done to my vineyard that I have not done in it? Why then, when I expected it to bring forth good grapes, did it bring forth wild grapes? And now please, let me tell you what I will do to my vineyard. I will take away its hedge, and it shall be burned, and break down its wall, and it shall be trampled down. I will lay it waste, it shall not be pruned or dug, but there shall come up briars and thorns. I will also command the clouds that they rain no rain on it. For the vineyard of the Lord of hosts is the house of Israel, and the men of Judah are his pleasant plant. He looked for justice, but behold oppression, for righteousness, but behold a cry for help. All right, so here, that sums it up right here. What more could have been done to my vineyard that I have not done in it? Like, what else could he have done for them that he didn't do already to make it bring forth good grapes? There was nothing else, So, okay, so that's the vineyard. I think this is another theme now. Okay, woe to those who join house to house. They add field to field till there is no place where they may dwell alone in the midst of the land. And that's what we see. Everything is spoken for. Everything is fenced off. Everything is private property. Everything is no trespassing. There's no place for somebody to just camp, right? So it's kind of interesting. All right. In my hearing, the Lord of hosts said, truly, many houses shall be desolate, great and beautiful ones, without inhabitant. For 10 acres of vineyard shall yield 1 bath, and a homer of seed shall yield 1 ephah. Woe to those who rise early in the morning, that they may follow intoxicating drink, who continue until night, till wine inflames them. the harp and the strings, the tambourine and flute, and wine are in their feasts. But they do not regard the work of the Lord, nor consider the operation of his hands. Therefore my people have gone into captivity, because they have no knowledge. Their honorable men are famished, and their multitude dried up with thirst. Therefore Sheol has enlarged itself and opened its mouth beyond measure. What do you think that means, right? Their glory and their multitude and their pomp. And he who is jubilant shall descend into it. People shall be brought down, each man shall be humbled, and the eyes of the lofty shall be humbled. But the Lord of hosts shall be exalted in judgment, and God who is holy shall be hallowed in righteousness. Then the lambs shall feed in their pasture, and in the waste places of the fat ones strangers shall eat. So, woe to those who draw iniquity with cords of vanity. Vanity is an interesting topic too. And sin as if with a cart rope, that say, let him make speed and hasten his work, that we may see it, and let the counsel of the Holy One of Israel draw near and come, that we may know it. Woe to those who call evil good and good evil, who put darkness for light and light for darkness, who put bitter for sweet and sweet for bitter. I mean, this I've seen quoted a lot in the last 10 years. And we know what that's, among other things, it definitely would apply to what they were saying. Okay, oh yeah. And then another interesting one is gluttony, which is, that's like the people that, they're greedy, they're never satisfied, they always want more. It's never enough. And it can be anything. It doesn't have to be just money, but because it's what does money buy? It's always something they want more of. So vanity is just superficial things that they're meaningless, and they chase after them. That's where we get the term of vanity dresser, people who spend hours in front of a mirror and fixing every little thing all the time, Anyway, okay, 21. Woe to those who are wise in their own eyes and prudent in their own sight. Woe to men mighty at drinking wine. Woe to men valiant for mixing intoxicating drink, who justify the wicked for a bribe and take away justice from the righteous man. See, that's corruption right there. The wicked will bribe and go free. The righteous, who is, let's say, poor, wouldn't do that anyway, but he couldn't afford it either way. And he doesn't get justice because it's all just, a coin-operated justice system. Everything is a coin-operated system. Pay for justice, it's a pay per, justice kind of thing. You see it everywhere. And that brings you back to that whole thing, the mother of harlots. Everything is for money, right? Okay. Therefore, as the fire devours the stubble and the flame consumes the chaff, so their root will be as rottenness, and their blossom will ascend like dust, because they have rejected the law of the Lord of hosts and despised the word of the Holy One of Israel. Okay, and then it just goes on with a lot of like all the judgments they're going to get. Okay, so it goes on with all that here and there, and then let's see. Next is 6 here. In the year that King Uzziah died, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne, high and lifted up, and the train of his robe filled the temple. Above it stood seraphim, that's a type of angel. Each one had 6 wings. With 2 he covered his face, with 2 he covered his feet, and with 2 he flew. And one cried to another and said, Holy, holy, holy is the Lord of hosts. The whole earth is full of his glory. Now, this is the kind of thing that's happening in heaven. And in Revelation, we get another peek into that when John is caught up there. You see this. This is what's going to be happening there. Okay. And the posts of the door were shaken by the voice of him who cried out, and the house was filled with smoke. So I said, Woe is me, for I am undone, because I am a man of unclean lips, and I dwell in the midst of a people of unclean lips. For my eyes have seen the King, the Lord of hosts. Then one of the seraphim flew to me, having in his hand a live coal which he had taken with the tongs from the altar, and he touched my mouth with it and said, Behold, this has touched your lips. Your iniquity is taken away, and your sin purged. Also I heard the voice of the Lord saying, Whom shall I send, and who will go for us? Then I said, Here I am, send me. So, and it goes on, and he said, Go and tell this people, and then it goes on with a lot of things, but this was Isaiah's like commissioning, okay, when he was called as a prophet to go out and speak these things to the people. Okay, now that's it for 6. And I mean, like I said all these times, like I won't read every line, but I recommend that you get a Bible and read every line, okay? So cover to cover, I always say do the New Testament and then the Old Testament, because then you understand the Old Testament and you don't get into all these traps that are out there now. Okay, so get it like a King James or a New King James or something good. Okay, now we have chapter 7, and I'm going to go over to verse 14. Make this a little smaller. Oh, well, okay, it's readable. Okay. So 7:14 is one of these. Watch. It's a whole thing. He wants to give, the Lord wants to give somebody a sign, and the king doesn't want a sign. And so Isaiah says, you're going to get one anyway. And, anyway, so it comes down to this, 14. So remember, Isaiah 7:14. Therefore, the Lord himself will give you a sign. Behold, the virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Okay, and that means God with us. So it's not that, okay, but then why was he named Jesus? Well, because the angel Gabriel told Mary and Joseph to name him Jesus. That's why. And that has a meaning, but this has a meaning, and it's true too. So it's like he has a lot of titles. That's just one more title, but the name is Jesus. So, and whatever you do, don't get trapped in all these culty, groups that think you have to pronounce it this way or that way. I mean, I talked about that in other videos, but just don't get into that kind of bondage, please. Okay. All right. 8. Now, so it's 8, and I'm going to go to 16. Okay. All right. Bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples, and I will wait on the Lord, who hides his face from the house of Jacob, and I will hope in him. Here am I and the children whom the Lord has given me. We are for signs and wonders in Israel from the Lord of hosts, who dwells in Mount Zion. It sounds kind of like the time of Jesus and the disciples. Okay, 19. And when they say to you, seek those who are mediums and wizards, who whisper and mutter, should not a people seek their God? Should they seek the dead on behalf of the living? To the law and to the testimony, if they do not speak according to this word, it is because there is no light in them. Okay, they will pass through it hard-pressed and hungry. And it shall happen when they are hungry that they will be enraged and curse their king and their God, and look upward. Then they will look to the earth and see trouble and darkness, gloom of anguish, and they will be driven into darkness. Okay, so it's just judgment for that. But that's in the Old Testament. You're not supposed to have any communication with the dead. Any. I don't care who it is. That's what it says. And you don't pray to them. Now Jesus is risen. That's obviously another thing. But just pray to God, Father, Son, Holy Spirit. End of the list. Okay, that's it. Nobody else. And this is another thing that's going on in the churches today. That's even worse than a sin. I think it called it an abomination. But anyway, don't do this. Okay, it's not really. It wouldn't work anyway. But we're not supposed to even try to do that kind of thing. It's a serious sin. Okay. Now, it's, you can get in contact with demons. It's cultic. It's a no-no. It's forbidden. Okay, so chapter 9. This is great here. Chapter 9. Okay, 1 through 7. Nevertheless, the gloom will not be upon her who is distressed, as when at first he lightly esteemed the land of Zebulun and the land of Naphtali, and afterward more heavily oppressed her by the way of the sea beyond the Jordan in Galilee of the Gentiles. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Those who dwelt in the land of the shadow of death, upon them a light has shined. This is another prophecy, a messianic prophecy about how Jesus did a lot of ministry in that area. Okay, that's mentioned in the New Testament. It references this. Okay, so you have multiplied the nation and increased its joy. They rejoice before you according to the joy of harvest, as men rejoice when they divide the spoil. For you have broken the yoke of his burden and the staff of his shoulder, the rod of his oppressor, as in the day of Midian. For every warrior's sandal from the noisy battle and garments rolled in blood will be used for burning and fuel of fire. And then I'll read this next part that it goes right into, but here, the whole thing, they were focused on a political savior. The whole oppression is the sin nature, and Jesus came to free us from that oppressor, the oppression of sin. bondage to sin, being enslaved to sin, the sin nature. Okay, that's what you need to be set free from. If that isn't mastered, nothing else matters. You're still in bondage. So that's why he came to deal with that at his first arrival. At the second arrival, he deals with, the government stuff, and that's what it comes to right here. But, that's the whole thing there. You have to defeat, and then the devil, all that stuff. Okay, so now verse 6 is another famous one. We get this on a lot of Christmas cards. 6 and 7. 4. Unto us a child is born, unto us a son is given, and the government will be upon his shoulder, and his name will be called Wonderful, Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace. All right, so more titles. Okay, he wasn't named Counselor either. Emmanuel is just one more of these. All right, of the increase of his government and peace, there will be no end upon the throne of David and over his kingdom, to order it and establish it with judgment and justice from that time forward, even forever. The zeal of the Lord of hosts will perform this. Okay, so that's the, prophecy here. And it spans a long period of time. I mean, we have the birth, okay, and then this whole thing is millennial. What's going to happen to peace and the government and the, world, all that stuff. It's coming, but, justice, then it will be there. Okay, all right. So this is just a beautiful section here. All right. Let's see. And then it's about Samaria and judgment for that. Okay, so the next one is 10. 1 through 4. Okay, so woe to those who decree unrighteous decrees, who write misfortune which they have prescribed, to rob the needy of justice, and to take what is right from the poor of my people, that widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless. What will you do in the day of punishment, and in the desolation which will come from afar? To whom will you flee for help, and where will you leave your glory? Without me they shall bow down among the prisoners, and they shall fall among the slain. For all this his anger is not turned away, but his hand is stretched out still. Okay, more judgments coming, in other words. So you get the idea. He really hates it when people oppress and exploit the poor, right? The needy, to rob the needy of justice, to take what is right from the poor of my people, the widows, that widows may be their prey, and that they may rob the fatherless. It's just so shameful, and that's the kind of thing that, happened then, but it's happening now. And there's so many parallels, like I said, when you read Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Ezekiel, to what's going on in this country and in the church today. It's very relevant. So, okay, anyway, that is all I have for today. So I'm going to read on and pick up and, move along with chapter 11, and I'll do at least 10 chapters each time, maybe more, right? Here it's just mentioning like Assyria is judged, a remnant returns. If there's anything really, really like, you've got to know, I'll read it. If it's just a general thing, then, I won't go over it. But okay, so that's that. So yeah, I'll be back tomorrow and I'll do 11 through 20 or more. So we'll see. I have to see how this goes. Okay, so have a blessed evening and I'll be back tomorrow.